Welcome to a new episode of B-Movie Enema the series. I'm Jeff Arbuckle, your B-Movie proctologist supreme. This week, I've got a little bit of a peculiar movie. And the reason for my use of the word peculiar is because of three primary facets that I find in this movie to be unusually attractive. This week, we're going to watch 1967's She-Freak. Now, She-Freak is directed by B. Ron Elliott under the pseudonym Byron Mabe. However, there's also an uncredited director listed on the Internet Movie Database listing by the name of Don Davison. The exact story behind that and anything like that is, I really don't know. My guess is that there probably was some second unit photography done during the tight 10-day principal shooting schedule, maybe a little bit afterwards. I don't know. Now, that's somewhat interesting. But the origins of this movie is my first major point of peculiarity. The true origins of this movie go all the way back to 1932 and Todd Browning's landmark horror film Freaks. That's because She-Freak's producer, David F. Friedman, totally admitted that his film was completely and totally intended to be a remake of Browning's film. Now, if you haven't seen Freaks, well, it's about a conniving trapeze artist who seduces a carnival sideshow dwarf when she learns that he's got a large inheritance. She then conspires with another sideshow performer, the strongman, to kill this little person and steal the money. The other sideshow freaks end up turning this woman, named Cleopatra, into one of them, but as a grotesque human/duck creature. Perhaps the most memorable thing about the movie is the initiation chant by the freaks as they say, one of us, gooble gobble, gooble gobble. While it actually gives the so-called freaks the upper hand in this movie and shows them as having agency in punishing this interloper who plans to take advantage of one of their own, it's actually very well done in how it handles being downright scary. And speaking of someone who just fought her way out of being transformed by a bunch of weirdo freaks that assimilated her during our Halloween special, let's check in with Nurse Disembody. Nurse, how are you feeling?
Much more like myself, thank you.
Great. So, spending a week as a Borg drone, was it hard to break free from the assimilation?
Oh, much easier than you would expect. Those guys are pretty damn boring. No interesting conversation or anything. They mostly all said and thought the same thing. Almost all of that was focused on partying non-stop.
Well, I can imagine.
Plus, they don't really have a dedicated bathroom. It was really confusing what I should do when I had to go.
You know, to be honest, I'm not sure I ever really thought about that before.
Yeah, it's pretty gross. They don't give you any extra jumpsuits. It gets hot and sweaty and really smelly inside those things.
Boy, I sure am glad you told me all that. Anyway, She-Freak. The second thing I find kind of interesting about this movie is that it is often thought of as a real bottom-of-the-barrel level exploitation flick. It only has a 3.3 out of 10 on IMDb, and I've seen plenty of opinion pieces stating it as among some of the worst exploitation films of the 60s. However, even though the website allmovie.com lists it as a 1.5 stars out of 5 listing, reviewer Robert Fershing still describes it as an entertaining sexploitation update of Freaks. So...
That's confusing?
Yeah, but I get it. I mean, sometimes movies can be entertaining while also being a big old pile of shit at the same time. It's kind of something that I specialize in around here, as does Fershing, having written a book called The Amazing World of Cult Movies. Now, the third thing that I find alluring about this movie is something that I'll come back around to in the next segment. But before we dive into this movie, I do want to talk a little bit about director Byron Mabe. Mabe, or Elliot if you're nasty, had several acting credits in a fairly long quarter-of-a-century career. He was in a lot of popular TV shows like Bonanza, Barnaby Jones, Mannix, Police Story, Kung Fu, Mission Impossible Canon, and Gunsmoke. And he also had an uncredited role in a movie that gets mentioned a whole hell of a lot here on this show, Little Cigars. In fact, Felix Silla, who plays Shorty in this movie, is also in Little Cigars. And I'm telling you, Nurse, I'm starting to wonder if we were in Little Cigars and just didn't know it. Now, I'll talk a little bit more about Silla in the next segment. Now, under his Elliot name, he did direct a handful of other movies, and I'm guessing most of these were either nudies or straight up pornography. Check out these titles: The Lustful Turk, The Acid Eaters, The Head Mistress,
Oh my.
Nude Django,
Ooh.
Space Thing, The Bushwhacker, Love Thy Neighbor and His Wife,
Ooh, naughty.
and my favorite, The Big Snatch.
Those are amazing.
Some of those were made with Friedman, but to be completely honest with all of you, they're not pornos. Some are sexploitation flicks, while others are horror or just plain old exploitation movies. But they were certainly likely to be just your run-of-the-mill drive-in fare and 42nd Street type of stuff. Now, on the other side of this partnership, you have David F. Friedman. Friedman was nicknamed the mighty monarch of exploitation. It sounds like something that Stan Lee would have come up with. He worked quite often with Herschel Gordon Lewis, one of the superstars of exploitation cinema. They met in 1960 and got their professional partnership off the ground, creating nudie cuties that hit the big time. The two went their separate ways in 1965 for a variety of reasons, but they left their mark. Friedman kept working in the exploitation genre for decades, right up to his death in 2011. And I definitely recommend to all of you the documentary Herschel Gordon Lewis, The Godfather of Gore, which was made by Frank Henenlotter, if you really want to hear some more of those stories of those two guys creating an entire empire of crazy nudies and exciting exploitation. Well, shit, I mean, this opening feels like it went on forever. So, Nurse, let's get things started with the movie named after your own autobiography, She Freak.
Hey, that hasn't been published or become public knowledge yet.
This movie revolves around Claire Brennan's character, Jade Cochran. Jade started out as a waitress who decides she wants to run off and join the carnival.
Probably not the best of decisions someone could make.
Yeah, but let's dissect this a little bit. There once was a time in which people really did think about running off and joining a circus or carnival or something.
Yeah, that's called childhood.
Okay, fair, but there's a certain allure to it, isn't there? You are helping people have fun and enjoyment. You're giving kids memories that they'll hopefully cherish for the rest of their lives.
I mean, sure, okay, on the surface, I see your point. But have you ever actually looked at the people operating rides at the carnival? They seem either miserable or they have rap sheets a mile long.
I mean, that's one way to look at it. I think there was a period in time when people saw these types of places as a way to get noticed. We saw it in the credits here, and we saw it at the beginning of last season's Satan in High Heels. Apparently, carnivals had dancing girls. I guess if you think of yourself as an attractive woman, you could go there, shake your money maker, and then maybe Hugh Hefner will find you and take you to the Playboy Mansion. I don't know. I really don't have any idea why people had such attraction to this kind of lifestyle. But let's back up here for a second. First, yes, much of this movie was filmed at a real fair, the Kern County Fair in Bakersfield, California, to be exact. Clearly, that helped keep the cost of production down to its scant $75,000. The fair already had rides, people operating the rides, people enjoying the rides, etc. It probably already had a freak show tent too. There were actors to fill out some of those primary roles, but some might have just been part of the fair to begin with and perfectly fine with the idea of being in a real live movie. A shitty movie, but they were in a movie to be sure.
Is this what you would call shooting the rodeo?
Yeah, it is. Shooting the rodeo is a term that the guys at Red Letter Media came up with when you are either trying to save money on a production or you've not shot enough film and you go take advantage of a public event going on to steal shots and fill out your movie. This movie is entirely made up of that method. This is something that Friedman could really take advantage of and make a movie that hardly cost him anything. And, anyway, there are two stars in this movie that I really want to talk about. The first is our lead actress, Claire Brennan. I first saw this movie some years ago on the Roku channel called Bizarre TV. Now, I've talked about this a lot on the blog and even mentioned it once or twice last season. Anyway, there's something about Brennan that I really liked. She's kind of a snot and seemingly a little bit of an ice queen, but she's also unusually sexy.
Oh God, here we go.
What? Anyway, Brennan looks a little bit like Mary Warnoff from the world of another exploitation master, Roger Corman, but she almost has a more realistic look to her. One thing that I've grown to like a little bit more as I've gotten a little bit older and maybe a little bit more mature in my taste is that the classic movie star actress sex bomb is always nice, but sometimes the actress that looks more like a real person that you'd find working at the local Denny's or pub down the street is a little bit nicer. She's got a grizzled attitude of someone like that too, who won't take any guff from the local asshole regular. Brennan's good looking to be sure, but it's not like some others who would catch more attention in your typical movies, if you kind of catch my drift.
Yeah, the southern accent is a bit much.
Okay, yeah, I'm not sure what's up with that. I assume that this is probably meant to maybe appear that it is taking place in the South, someplace like in Florida or Alabama or something, and out in the middle of nowhere. Anyway, while I do find Brennan to be alluring in a normal, everyday type of pretty girl, there's more to all of this as well. At the time of making this movie, Brennan was already in her 30s, and to be honest with you, that's not uncommon for actresses to get leading roles well into their 30s, especially in that era. Tina Louise got the role of Ginger on Gilligan's Island at the age of 30. Both actresses who played Marilyn Munster on TV were both well into their late 20s when they landed the role of what seemed to be a woman in her early 20s or possibly even late teens. Donna Douglas, who played Ellie Mae Clampett on the Beverly Hillbillies, was also in her 30s. In fact, Douglas was almost 40 when that series came to an end, and she was portrayed much younger than that. So here we have a sex symbol kind of role going to somebody in her 30s, which seems almost, in a way, it almost seems unheard of today in the modern day. It seems like while there are plenty of pretty actresses well into their 30s, most of the time they land the sex bomb type of character in their 20s.
Oh, so you're saying I still have my chance to make it big in Hollywood?
You sure do, nurse. You sure do. Now, Claire Brennan unfortunately passed away 10 years after this movie's release from cancer. However, in between the making of this movie and her untimely death, she had a very interesting romantic relationship almost no one knew about. We're going to meet Shorty in the next segment of the movie, and Shorty was played by Felix Silla. Silla was a little person and actor who got lots of roles due to his diminutive size. He and Brennan had a 9-year affair from the time they met on this movie to shortly before she died. But Silla was also a stuntman as well as an actor, and he did a lot of voice work too. He was an Ewok, a little cigar, because everyone ever was apparently at some point a little cigar, and he even played the creature in The Brood. His best known role was as Cousin It on The Addams Family. Now, Silla just passed away earlier this year from pancreatic cancer at the age of 84. And Silla was married from 1965 up until his passing to Sue Silla, who was also a little person, and they had 2 children. However, did you catch the little the bugaboo there in that story I just told?
Didn't you say that Silla and Brennan had a 9-year relationship before she died?
Yeah, I did. Brennan and Silla did indeed have an affair that no one knew about that was extramarital for Silla. Brennan and Silla even had a child together too. And I do imagine that most of the reason why their affair was secret was due to the fact that he had been married during the whole time. However, he was also only 3'11" and she was 5'7". Even though it really should not matter whatsoever, it's likely not something that would have done her much favor as an actress. She had a steady career, mostly on TV during the 70s. He had a steady career as an actor and stuntman. But the unfortunate truth is, I don't know if she would have had those same opportunities if it was known that she was A, sleeping with a married man, and B, that married man was a little person. She would probably have been looked at as a freak herself. Unfortunately, people expect pretty and quote-unquote normal people to like other pretty and quote-unquote normal people. When you start mixing that formula up, a lot of people get weird about it, especially men. And, like I said, Brennan is not without some pretty good looks herself.
It's kind of sad to think that he was probably the love of her life, and if he wasn't married, they probably would have still had to play down their relationship.
Yeah, it is. I mean, we're barely past the point of not staring when you see two guys or two girls together, or seeing a really attractive person being very happy and attracted to someone with a disability. The truth is, even today, a normal-sized person and a little person as significant others would probably attract stares. All right, so what say you we get back to the movie?
Sounds good to me, Doc. The carnival is in town, and Jade is looking to make a splash as a real-life carny. Say, if the carnival comes to town, can we take a day off and go?
Well, I can't see why not.
Ooh, can we get cotton candy and elephant ears and deep-fried everything?
Yeah, that sounds pretty yummy. Well, God damn it, now I really want to go to the carnival.
I like that Jade went from working as a waitress wearing a waitress uniform to working at a carnival where she's a waitress wearing a waitress uniform.
This is the epitome of lateral career movement.
I think we also got our first ever ASMR as that one toothless carny was snorting down his lunch.
Ew? Jade makes friends with Moon Mullins, who is played by Lynn Courtney. Now, Courtney had only appeared in one other thing some 12 years before, called I Am a Camera, where she was an uncredited young girl. Now, Moon is a friendly type. Really friendly, since she is a resident burlesque dancer at the carnival. Seriously, was that a thing? I know I asked that back in the Satan in High Heels episode, but for real, was that a thing?
The 60s was a weird time, man.
Yeah, it was. Anyway, Jade is invited to hang with Moon at the motel that she's staying at. Now, Jade also starts making some more friends, and she catches the eye of her boss, the foreman of all the ride operators, some of the guys who run the games, just a lot of guys around the place. For the most part, it's a lot of bowling alley music that plays while Claire Brennan just walks around the various aisles of the carnival.
There's something oddly relaxing to this movie.
Yeah, this movie is kind of poorly made. It's not exactly well acted, but I'll be damned if there's something kind of nice and pretty to this movie. It makes you want to go to a carnival. Plus, there are shots done at what appears to be dusk, and it's not very packed in some of the places that the camera follows Jade, and it just seems really serene.
I can already taste the popcorn and the cotton candy and the funnel cakes.
Me too. I mean, I guess everyone's hanging out in the freak show because that tent is fairly well packed. As Jade goes in and looks around, she has to exit because she starts to feel sick or shook or something. And she goes to Moon and tells her that she's got quite the freak issue. And Moon tries to tell her that they were born that way and maybe they're better off with the carnival than most anywhere else. But Jade, she's not having it.
Yeah, she says that she doesn't think they should be anywhere.
Yep, we did get a brief peek at old Shorty. He knows something's up with the new chick. And after we watch Moon do a dance, Jade returns with her to the motel room. And Jade, well, Jade's a bit of a pumpkin, isn't she? She literally tells Moon that she'd never been in a real hotel room before.
Did you see the look Moon gave her when she said that?
Yeah, check it out. Moon looks up at her and is like, "You for real, doll?" It just seems that Moon might be thinking twice about this bunk arrangement. The girls then have some real talk about, boys and stripping and being a carny and what have you. Then Jade asks about whether or not there are any nice guys around with money. Moon starts going down the list of people at the carnival that are worth marrying. And here's where we get some intrigue.
Yup. She starts a plotting and a planning around meeting the richest carny of them all.
You got it. Mr. Steve St. John, the owner of The Freak Show.
But doesn't Jade have a freak problem?
Sure does. While she thinks about getting all the money that comes along with marrying a guy who runs a freak show, the guys at the carnival have a knockdown, drag-out fight over who's gonna hit on Jade first. Carny number one, a ride operator who has a medicine cabinet full of pomade, or a guy who goes by Pretty Boy, who has a lot of missing teeth and a grease paint beard.
Yes. Reminds me of my single days. Carnies all over the place, punching each other in the face and sticking screwdrivers in each other's hands.
You know, that's why I hired you. You had that steamy carny bait sex appeal.
You say the sweetest things.
And there you have it, the shocking end to Jade's story as a carny. Or, I guess it's just the beginning of her new life in the freak show?
Kind of a gruesome ending, wasn't it?
Yeah, it really was. Yes, this is a cheapo flick, and yeah, it's not great, but I like the makeup job on Jade at the end of this movie. This should be a lesson to any small-town bumpkin gal who wants to use her looks, her wiles, and her charms to get a man with money. Nurse Disembodied can tell you it ain't worth it.
Not at all. Unless you like getting yourself tangled up with a B-movie proctologist, you probably should be careful with those looks and charms.
That's right. Hey, wait a minute.
Hey, I didn't say I was disappointed with where I ended up.
Aw, those damn charms of yours. I feel like there's a lesson to be learned here.
Yeah, there is. Life at the carnival as a carny isn't all that it's cracked up to be.
Oh, yeah, good call, nurse. Sure, you get all the cotton candy and fried Snickers and goofy hats you could possibly want, but in the end, you just end up another freak in the freak show with half your face melted off. But seriously, Jade gets what she wants by romancing and marrying Steve St. John. She marries him mostly for his money.
He's not that bad looking of a guy.
Yeah, nah, he's maybe a little doofy, but not that bad. Steve's played by Bill McKinney. Now, McKinney got his start in this movie, but he would later appear in some pretty big damn movies, including Deliverance, The Parallax View, First Blood, The Green Mile, Back to the Future Part 3, and eventually he would mostly be tied to Clint Eastwood and appear in several of his movies. McKinney would be a bit player in several movies in his career until his death in 2011. So in this, he scores the lovely Jade, but she carries on her affair with Blackie, the foreman of the ride operators. Now, Blackie was played by Lee Raymond, who was in exactly one movie, She-Freak. He did direct the adult version of Jekyll and Hyde, but anyway, Shorty, who's been watching Jade.
Probably because in real life he was sweet on Claire Brennan.
Maybe it worked its way into a movie like that, who knows? Anyway, Shorty knows that Jade is unfaithful to Steve, and Steve confronts Blackie after learning about the little tryst, and Steve is killed. Blackie goes to jail, and Jade gets all the money. But carnies, well, they stick together.
Boy, do they. Their passions run deeper than just the carnal stuff, you know.
You know, you could probably say that in a lot less gross way.
But no less true.
Yeah, so the carnies gang up on Jade and melt her face off and turn her into one of the freaks she so hates.
'Tis the life of a carny.
But is it really?
From my experience, yes.
So let's bring this in for a landing. Tell the fine folks where they can find all the B-Movie Enema stuffs.
You got it. You can find all of Jeff's writings at bmovieenema.com. New articles are released every Friday morning, and you can follow B-Movie Enema on Facebook and Twitter so you can stay up on all the articles coming out and the articles Jeff posts throughout the week. Subscribe to the B-Movie Enema channel on YouTube to catch episodes of this show, B-Movie Enema the series, so crush that subscribe button, share the crap out of the videos, and most importantly, smash that like button! Sorry, I got a little carried away there. If you have Roku, add the channel OtherWorlds TV and catch B-Movie Enema each Saturday late at night. But also check out all the obscure movies throughout the week and the other movie hosts each Saturday and Sunday. Back to you, Jeff.
Thanks, Nurse. I think that pretty much does it. We'll be back next week with a real action classic, but for now, I think I'm going to learn a little bit more about Nurse Disembodied's time as a carny vixen.
Well, there's that time I was cheating on that dog-faced boy with the bearded lady. That was a real big mess I found myself in. There's not enough burlesque acts in the world that would have gotten me enough money to get away from that situation.